Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Schuh Show. Grant, Cohn, Rob Schuh, your hosts. Hope you enjoyed your Thanksgiving. Rob, did you enjoy your Thanksgiving? How was yours?
It was fantastic. I am on location, as people might tell without the 4K quality of the home studio setup, on location in the Valley of the Moon with my folks. It was great. Fantastic to spend that time with family. How about yourself?
It was great. My wife made the whole thing. My dad was here. It was really nice. Uh, what else? My wife made a great spread, and I ate way too much. Here's my question for you: when you attack the turkey, when it's time to eat turkey, how do you do it? Like, do you have some breast meat? What do you do?
I have to have both. I love dark meat, love it, but I have to have some breast meat as well. So I do a fairly mixed plate there, and then I pile it on. I was a weird child that liked my food separated. I was the buttered noodles kind of kid, and then I came into being a foodie, and now it's just pile it all on, shove it all in, and enjoy the mixture of flavors. The one dish that is a must have that's a little bit odd in our family is the jellied cranberry sauce from Ocean Spray. It never
I
gets
like that.
old for me.
I
I
like
love
that.
it.
It's good. My thing is I always just cut off the leg with the thigh and put the whole thing on my plate and see how far I can go. It's a lot. It's
Yes, it
big.
is.
It's big,
It's a
but
big
there's
chunk.
no you got all night. I mean, there's no buzzer.
There's no hurry.
There's no
People
hurry.
aren't going anywhere.
Anyway, so I'm eating my turkey leg over a course of 4 hours yesterday, and I'm watching the Saints play, and they looked so bad, and they lost, and now the Niners are the seventh seed, baby, and it doesn't look like anyone's got to worry about the Saints anytime soon, unless Drew Brees comes out of retirement or Taysom Hill decides. I mean, I don't even know what he could do. It's a Trevor Simeon show. So seventh seed, baby. The sixth seed is the Vikings, who they're playing, so they could go into the sixth seed after this weekend. What do you think of the Niners' path to the playoffs now, Rob, Mr. Negativity?
Yeah, as fans know, I'm always down on the Niners, never looking at the brighter side of the equation. Certainly, it's a glass half empty for me all the time. No, it is the Niners control their own destiny. What a
Hmm.
refreshing thing to say. From
Yeah.
here on out, don't get me wrong, there's some nerves that come with saying that because of the inconsistency we have seen from this 49ers team. But my belief is we are rounding into form, that what we are now seeing on consecutive weeks is the team I expected to see from the start of the season and is the reason I was so frustrated with the inconsistent play by the 49ers to start the season because in all of the research I did about this team and looking at the matchups and examining the schedule, I expected us to come out and play the way that we're playing now to start the year. It's not too late. 500. The path seems clear. But this week's game feels like the most important one. And I think that's going to be a common theme going forward, that every week it's going to feel like that week's game is the most important.
Yeah. It's an interesting thought. Maybe the Niners aren't inconsistent anymore. Maybe the inconsistency is over. Or maybe they're an inconsistent team that's won two in a row.
Right.
Maybe, like, for example, going into Thanksgiving yesterday, I was thinking, it's funny, we're going to watch the Raiders today, and everyone's just down on, like, not down on the Raiders, out on the Raiders,
Right.
totally out, because they're 5-5, just like the
And
Niners.
so much dysfunction.
Of course, absolutely, but they're 5-5, and so are the 49ers. And it's interesting how, basically the last 3 weeks colors your perspective. The Raiders have lost their coach, their wide receiver, they've lost three in a row. It's all bad, but then they just go into Dallas and win. They beat the Dallas. It was in Dallas. Was it not in Dallas?
It was in Dallas,
It was in
in
Dallas.
Jerry Jones's palace.
They won somehow, some way with an interim head coach. They beat a team that's winning a division. So all of a sudden, you remember, like, yeah, the Raiders are an inconsistent team. The Niners are kind of an inconsistent team. So that's one thing. The other thing is you're looking at it like, well, the Saints are out. The wild card teams are going to be the Rams, the Vikings, and the Niners, right? So there's really not much at stake in this game. Wrong. Wrong. There's a dark horse team. It's Philly. Forget New Orleans.
Mm.
Philly's a dark horse team. And I just want to real quickly go through the rest of their schedule and why this game against the Vikings is so important. Here's what Philly has left. At the Giants this weekend.
That seems winnable.
Next weekend, at the Jets. Then they got a bye week. Then they got a home game against Washington. Then they got the Giants again at home. Then they go to Washington and play Washington again. Then week 18, they have Dallas. There's a good chance they could be sitting their starters considering no one else in this division is any good. And Philly at best could get to 10 wins, but not at best. But they could get to 11. But I think looking at that schedule, I think that team could get to 10 wins, which means that the Vikings and the Niners might be playing for the 7th seed in this game right now.
I think that you're right. I sit with some comfort in the idea that I believe the first tiebreaker for the playoff format is the head-to-head matchup. And therefore, if the 49ers end up with the same record as the Philadelphia Eagles, that they would be ahead. I could be incorrect.
Here's where it gets tricky, though. If it's a 3-way tie at 9 games with Minnesota, and Minnesota wins this game, then I think it goes to something else. So
yeah,
it does get very tricky.
It goes to common opponents next,
something
and
like
that would screw with the 49ers.
Yes. So 7th seed, it's a big deal. That may be where they end up with the 7th seed. If Philly makes, and it's not really that Philly's better than the Niners. The Niners beat Philly. So the Niners, you could say, are better than Philly, but they're improving. So are the Niners, but then they just have a really easy schedule going down the stretch.
Yeah, as you lay out that schedule, I cannot picture an easier schedule, in particular with the Week 17 matchup against Dallas. You would think even with a couple of losses for Dallas, it is possible they will have secured their playoff seeding at that point. That they may
the best thing for them, too, that Week 14 bye week. I mean, damn, that's great. That's what you want. That's almost unfair.
It really
so hold
is.
on. So let's say the Niners get the 7th seed. They win. They beat the Vikings. They win maybe 9 games. They could even lose to I don't know. Let's say they get the 7th seed. They finish with the 7th seed. That means they're most likely playing Green Bay, Tampa Bay, something like that. Arizona, maybe.
Yeah, rough matchup. I would say that any one of those teams would also be feeling that. They would also be saying to themselves, wow, I wish we were playing some other team other than the 49ers. Because when the 49ers are rolling, they are a very dominating team. The complementary style of football that they play when they're playing consistently is very difficult to beat.
Also, they have 2 guys right now that are playing at like an MVP level. 2 guys.
Yes.
Deebo and Bosa. Those guys give you a chance. I mean, Bosa is going to give the Niners a real chance in this game against the Vikings, and so will Deebo. Really, if you have 2 guys like that, you got a chance.
And you could add Trent Williams to that mix. He is having an amazing season. I would argue the most dominant left tackle in the league this year. And that's a very, very important position for the 49ers, considering the inconsistency on the right side of the line.
Yeah, absolutely. So Niners 7th seed, that may be where they end up. They could probably get to the 6th seed. I don't know if they can get to the 5th seed, but one way or another, it seems like they're going to, at best, and I'm not trying to be negative, at best, they're going to have a very difficult road game against Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, or the Cardinals. Most likely not. I don't think it's looking like the Cowboys are going to be the 4th seed after losing to the I don't know. Projecting too far ahead, but it only gets better from here.
So much can change in the NFL from week to week, right? We go
Injuries.
From doom and gloom to riding high on the 49ers, and it's because it's such a small sample size that there are 17 games. So from week to week, we have to have wild swings because each game accounts for such a large percentage of your season.
That's true. Now, more news. The 49ers opened up Dee Ford's practice window on Thanksgiving, Thursday, and hope that he can play against the Vikings. They don't really ask that much of him. He doesn't have to be in the greatest shape. I mean, they had, 10 snaps, something like that. And they're important plays. They're 3rd and long, those kind of stuff. He's had success against the Vikings in the past. If they have Dee Ford, what would that mean to the 49ers in this game?
It's such a big boost. They have been getting next to nothing from the bookend opposite of Bosa. And in getting that very minimal production, have been forced to get creative with Bosa in moving him around the line, in finding the best matchups for him to be able to take advantage and dominate in the way that he has been able to do so far. I believe that it is worrisome to be so reliant on one talent. You really want to have some balance there because some defensive coordinator will come up with a sufficient plan to hold Bosa in check. and without a balance on the other side, then you begin to worry. I think that Dee Ford is capable of adding something to the mix. You see flashes, very small, I admit, but flashes from Samson Ebukam recently, maybe one or two. But Charles Omenihu seems to have a pressure or a QB hit in him. And if through the combination of those three players, you can accumulate just a handful of QB hits and additional pressures and force more of the offense towards Bosa, I think that could be a big boon for the 49ers.
They're saying your mic's a little low. Can you turn it up a little bit? Anyway, see if you can.
I think I might be able to.
Okay. Dee Ford would be huge. Here's the thing. They have like this. They have Arden Key now. Arden Key's found money. They didn't know what they have with him. He's a defensive tackle. They move him inside. He's an interior pass rusher, and he's their best one they have. He's a better interior pass rusher than Eric Armstead. No offense. But Arden Key's actually good. He's got 3 sacks in his last 3 games. He's an asset. So if you have Bosa on one end, Key in the middle, a third rusher, and you would allow Eric Armstead to be what he was in 2019, which was the fourth guy. Mm-hmm. Hey, now you got a real pass rush. So Dee Ford, if he could come back and be what they pay him, they've given him more than $40 million. So I think he's played less than 500 snaps, including the playoffs. So if he could come back and give him, a sack or 2, that would really help. Because I think we're going to talk about the keys of this game, but any path to victory for the 49ers includes like sacking Kirk Cousins a lot. So Dee Ford, you got to play. Yeah.
I'm going to do the test here so that people can let me know if the mic is good in the comments. But I think that credit to D'Amico Ryans for moving Arden Key inside. I mean, that I would not have thought that would have resulted in the new renewed pass rush from him, because it doesn't appear that he has the build for it. But for whatever reason, it works. And it was a found gold discovery and much needed, because to your point, Eric Armstead on his own from the interior doesn't seem to produce that consistent pass rush. Once you lost DeForest Buckner pairing on the inside, it didn't seem to have the same effect.
Key can't stop the run in there, but on third down, as a guy you just bring in for, to rush the quarterback, he's good. He's an asset. He's their second best pass rusher on the team right now. If Dee Ford could come in and replace him, knock him down to 3, and have Armstead be 4, I mean, it's not 2019, but it's pretty good. Arden Key's not exactly DeForest Buckner, but he's got that ability to. He's got the long arms. He can kind of get low. He can swim, do the swim move. I mean, he's way thinner and smaller, but he looking like a poor man's DeForest Buckner out there on pass rush down. So good for Arden Key. Dee Ford would be a huge addition. But honestly, what do you expect though? Hasn't played in months.
Right.
It's Dee Ford.
I can't imagine that he goes more than a couple of games before we're back into a situation where he needs to rest the back. It just seems to be a recurring issue, and kudos to him for deciding to give it a go again. My hope is that he's consulted with doctors and that there's no considerable risk to his future in doing so. But it's a wear and tear type of issue that's going to need maintenance. So you hope that they're able to get him for some key games, potentially then get him some rest down the stretch, in the hopes that the Niners can make the playoff push and have him available for that. Because it would be such a shame to use him during the regular season, have the back flare up, and then be forced into a situation where they're not as dominant within the playoffs.
Well, here's the way I see it going with Dee Ford the rest of his tenure, because I think he's going to be on the team next year too. They restructured his contract, and it's going to make it tough to get rid of him.
Yeah, there's no advantage to releasing him.
I don't think so. So what's going to happen is he's going to play. And he's going to get hurt again. And then he'll rehab. And he's going to come back. And he's going to play. And it's going to, he'll give you 3-4 games. And then he'll be out for 3-4 games. And then he'll come back. And the Niners will continue paying him millions and millions and millions of dollars. And he'll say, it hurts. But I'm going to have this injury one way or another. So I'll just keep making money. And I'll keep playing. And I'm not I want to be healthy. I'm doing everything I can. It's not my fault. So I'll just control what I can control, rehab, play, and, say la vie. That's the Niners' fault for thinking this wasn't an issue. basically. That's
Yeah,
what I
and
think.
really the only thing you could criticize is if you are holding the roster spot and letting go of someone that could have added value elsewhere. Because I think the dead money is a dead issue now. They've moved
True.
around as much of it as they can. If they cut him, I believe next year's dead money would be the same as if keeping him. So
Yeah.
if he
That's the
can
thing.
contribute, might as well get some snaps. And the
That's why they held on to
49ers are.
Jalen Hurts for so long. It's like cutting him
That's
didn't
right.
help them. It's just giving up. Yeah.
Yep.
Sorry. Yeah. So Dee Ford, would love to see you do something. Let's talk about Deebo Samuel. His usage has been fascinating. So coming out this year, it was clear they saw him as their best player against Detroit. 12 targets, huge game. The first chunk of the season where they were unsuccessful, 3-5, he was getting about 10, anywhere from 8 to 12 targets a game. Then with their season on the line, they change it all up against the Rams. He gets 5 targets, 5 carries. They win big. Interesting little change. No longer just the number one receiver. He is both the running back and the wide receiver. And then against the Jaguars, he got 2 targets, 1 catch, 8 carries in a game that they could have won, doing whatever, playing Nate Sudfeld. It was the Jaguars, which was
Right.
weird. So where do you see his use? Is it going to be opponent specific? Is he now the running back? How would you use Deebo Samuel most importantly down the stretch for
So
this team?
I think you would typically look at this as, well, if we use him for carries, it's greater wear and tear.
Right.
He's going to be taking more shots from defensive linemen. He's going to be running into the heart of the defense. And so I think in a traditional sense, you would want him catching more passes than taking the
Right.
handoffs out of the backfield. But when I think about that, the way in which our offense uses him in the pass game, he takes some licks in the middle
Yeah.
of the field because
Yeah.
that's where Jimmy's most comfortable and where he's most accurate and how it sets up for yak yardage. So to me, it should be opponent dependent. It
Yeah.
should be what gives you need to get the ball in Deebo Samuel's hands. You must. And the establishment of the running game is so important for the 49ers that if you are unable to establish the run with Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon, whomever you have to put out there, Jeff Wilson Jr., who doesn't seem to have the same bounce in his step yet, but
Mhm.
hopefully will continue to rebound from that knee injury. If you're unable to get it going with your backs, you've got to turn to Deebo because
Right.
we have seen this team when they get away from the run, and it's not pretty.
Right. And they gave Deebo, to be fair, they gave Deebo all those carries because Elijah Mitchell didn't play against the Jaguars. They needed that. So if Elijah Mitchell plays, that changes the equation. But still, he's your best wide receiver by far. Maybe the
Yes.
best wide receiver in the league. He's your best running back by far. I mean, he's averaging 7.2 yards per carry. So he might be the best running back in the league. He might be the best player in the league. You have to. What's interesting is I like the way they use him against the Rams. 5-5, even split,
Mm-hmm.
seemed cool. But you know what? It doesn't seem like enough. Now against the Rams, when you're up 20, fine. But in this game, if it's a high scoring game, 10 isn't enough. I have 10 plays for Deebo Samuel out of how many offensive plays? I would say, how about 7-7, 8-8? Why not? I would hate to think of losing a game not giving Deebo Samuel enough the ball enough. And usually you don't think of giving wide receivers that many touches, but running backs routinely get touches, and he's built like a running back. He plays like a running back. What's if you could give him 8 carries, can't you give him 8 targets too? I'm just saying you got to give him. I don't really want them to ever use him the way they use him against Jacksonville ever again because he's averaging 18 yards a carry, a catch. Sorry, 18 yards a catch. You got to throw it to him
Right.
sometimes. You got to throw it to him sometimes, but 8-8, 7-7.
And it's not just 18 yards a catch. I mean, it is 18 yards a catch. You are 100% right about that. But when you dig deeper into that, it's 10 yards, almost 10 yards of yak on
Yeah.
every one of those receptions. So I mean, it is
And
so
it's the only
dangerous
explosive element in your offense. No offense to Brandon Aiyuk. He's more of a possession receiver. Same with Kittle right now.
Right. No offense to those. They are great
Yeah.
players. But if you get the ball to Deebo Samuel in space and allow
You
him
win.
to get ahead of steam,
You win.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's why they beat Chicago. They were losing to Chicago, and he had that long. Anyway, seems to me that the more they get him the ball, the more likely they are to actually go on a Super Bowl run.
I would agree.
So if you could use him like Alvin Kamara and get him 20 touches a game, that'd be great. But the minute he gets hurt and misses time, the season's over. The season's over. So it's a delicate balance. I mean, it's over in the sense that they're just not good enough to really like go on the run, they're not good enough to win a Super Bowl without him. I don't know if they're good enough to win the playoffs without him.
Right. It would require a significant step up from somebody else. I'm not counting out the 49ers, with my pessimistic view. I always look at the negative. If we did lose Deebo, which would be a travesty, I think that there are other players who have not lived up to what they're capable of to this point. And I think that leadership at times is placed upon people when there is a void created, and that vacuum then allows for a new person to step up. I think that with Aiyuk, Kittle, and the other weapons we have, it's possible someone would step up. I can't say it would be likely. I would try to keep Deebo in the 10 to 15 range with catches and touches out of the backfield because of that fear of overuse, because it's a delicate balance of ensuring that you get the ball into Deebo's hands enough times to produce, but not so many that you're creating unnecessary wear and tear.
Yeah, I go back to this. It's an old saying I heard from a coach, but the person who played the best defense on Michael Jordan ever, I don't know if I'm wording it right, was Dean Smith, his coach in North Carolina, for just not letting him shoot enough. Like all you got to do for Michael Jordan is let him shoot, give him more shots. And with Deebo, it's like, dude, Kyle, don't be the guy defending Deebo Samuel. Don't be the guy taking the ball out of Deebo Samuel's hands. Just give it to him. And the more you do, the better you. For example, the Niners were in the Super Bowl 2 years ago. Correct me if I'm wrong. It was less than 2 years ago. It was in Miami. I was there, and they were winning.
Well.
They were winning that game. Deebo Samuel had a phenomenal first half. He was getting end arounds. He almost threw a pass. He was looking like the best player on the field, like he is now. And then he didn't really get the ball much in the second half. What if they had used Deebo in that game the way they used him the last 2 weeks? Like they'd all be champions. They'd all be champions, Rob. So this is really
Grant, are you trying to make me lose more hair with that?
Yes. I'm trying to impress upon you how important it is for them to get this right. This is an important conversation. They should have talked about this 2 years ago. They'd all have rings.
Yes. You must find creative ways to get the ball into the hands of your most effective players. There is no question about that. Yeah. And it is by a country mile Deebo Samuel right now.
He's the reason they have a season right now. He's the reason. You're like, Kyle couldn't figure out their quarterback, and there's all this drama, and Deebo's like, oh, it's cool. I'll just be the best player on the team. Don't worry. I'll just be the best player in the league. Just give me the ball. You guys can't figure out what you want to do. Oh, Jimmy's a quarterback. It's cool. I'll just break all the tackles and run for all the yards, and we'll win. That's what he said. That was his speech to the team. I'll break all the tackles, guys.
I'll win. I'll put it on my back. Yeah, let's be clear. It is a quarterback-driven league, and therefore, the MVP is greatly skewed. Over the past umpteen years, I think there's only been 2 seasons that the MVP wasn't a quarterback. But let's be very clear that Deebo Samuel deserves to be in that conversation. Think of where the 49ers would be as a team without the contributions of Deebo to this point.
And if they start giving him running back touches, which, would mean 15 plus, that's running back touches, then he'll definitely be in the MVP conversation at that point. No other wide receivers. I don't think he'll probably have more touches in a season than Jerry Rice ever had. It's crazy.
That's saying something. Anytime you are on the list with Rice, let alone ahead of Jerry in any category, that's special. When you have a chance.
They should be using him more like Roger Craig than Jerry Rice. You know what I'm saying? Just as many catches as carries. Come on. He could do, he is doing some Jerry Rice stuff as a receiver, all those yards after the catch, but Jerry Rice couldn't play running back like this. That's all I'm saying.
No. There were several plays yesterday. My father and I are watching the Dallas game, and he looks over and says, hey, what would Deebo have done with that catch? Well, he would have run right the hell through that cornerback and taken it to the end zone. That's just how he plays. That's the physical nature. That is the girth that he has to his lower body, the power that he drives those legs with.
It really is
not something. Yeah, defensive backs want no part of that.
When I first saw him when the Niners drafted him, I was like, first of all, I thought this guy's got a badonkadonk. Like, wow. But I was thinking, like, this guy is built like that's what running backs are like. Running backs have those lower bodies that are built for beating, and he has it. And I was like, usually wide receivers are slender and they like Brandon Aiyuk or Dante Pettis, and like, well, this
Right.
guy really looks like a running back. Well, he could do that too. He can do that too with the badonkadonk. All right, let's answer this
He would
question.
make
Mike,
Sir Mix-a-Lot proud.
yes, Mike Shank 808 says, could the solution to the right side of the O line be Brunskill at right tackle and Banks at right guard? I don't. Real quick, I don't think so. I don't think moving
No?
Brunskill to tackle is the way to go. I mean, I think that would only highlight his athletic deficiencies. Brunskill's like a borderline starting caliber guard. I don't think he could really last long at tackle. I'd be more interested in seeing Banks. I'd be more interested at seeing more at left guard eventually if Tomlinson ever leaves. I I don't really know. I mean, Moore played right tackle in this game against the Jaguars and got benched at halftime. I'm not sure the Niners really have the talent on the offensive line. We'll see what these young guys can do. I don't know. What would you do with this offensive line?
Yeah, it's makeshift, and you really have to give each a try because the offensive line is something that works in unison, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not necessarily plug and play the best individual at each. I mean, generally that would be the best way to get the most uniform production as well. But it is putting together a puzzle of sorts, and it needs to work together at the end. If I were playing around with it, I thought that Brunskill was a more natural tackle than a guard. So I actually see Mike's suggestion here as being one that I might give a try. The question mark I cannot answer is Banks because I haven't seen enough of him to know if he could fill in at right guard. But that feels like one of the combinations that needs to be tried because of the fact that I think Brunskill was a more natural tackle. Now that he's played out of position for so long, I don't know if those skills are by the wayside, but when he filled in at tackle in 2019, those were impressive games.
They were. They were. He's just been bouncing around so much. He's finally got a spot. I don't know. I don't know. I think what the Niners need to do is probably bring in some new offensive linemen. I don't know if Brunskill's the long-term answer at any position. I don't know if Banks is. I don't know if Moore is. You got to keep trying. Keep spending draft picks and salary cap money on it and see what you can get. At least you got lucky with Tomlinson. That worked out. You didn't spend much on him for fifth-round pick. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So Deebo Samuel is far and away the best player on the team, and how much he gets the ball will kind of determine how far the Niners go. But it's not all about him. They also have George Kittle and Brandon Aiyuk. And I think it's interesting. Coming into this season, most people thought like Kittle was the man on this offense. He's the highest paid player. He's the greatest tight end ever. And he's not the man anymore. It's Deebo now. My question now is, who's number two? Who should be getting the second most plays dedicated to them? Kittle or Aiyuk? Running backs aside, after Deebo.
I key in here on the use of the word should. Who should be getting the second most targets there? And to me, this offense is built around Yak. It is absolutely set up with the strengths of Jimmy Garoppolo, with an offensive line that it probably is best to focus on getting the ball out quickly, that you really want to be able to get it to your playmakers in space quickly, shorter throws over the middle of the field often. And when I look at the two and compare and contrast them, the skill set seems to match up much cleaner with George Kittle. That you worry about George's ability to stay healthy, but I don't think you can allow that to impact your decision, much like the need to get Deebo Samuel that 10 to 15 touches, however you are orchestrating it. You've got to sort of set aside from your mind the idea that you may overuse him at that because you need it. Every game has become a must win. In particular, this week's game against Minnesota could decide the 49ers' fate at the end of the year. So to me, it is forcing the ball to Kittle. It is allowing him to do what Deebo Samuel does, which is physically impose himself on other defenses. It's a very demoralizing event for defenses to be run over by people like Deebo or Kittle or a run game that is unstoppable.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And there's also the fact that they pay him so much money. I mean, how do you make him the third banana in a passing attack that's in an offense that's a run first deal? Like, that's kind of rough. You're not paying him all that money to get 4 targets a game, which is what he got last week, 4 targets. Now he did score, but 4? That seems a little low for what you're paying. So yeah, it should be him, right? But then I go to Aiyuk. I really feel like Ayuk's better than him at this point.
Hmm.
I mean, he was really good in the last two games, particularly against Jacksonville. I know he was in the doghouse, but I think he's just a little quicker, a little faster, getting a little bit more separation, um, better catch radius. I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends on the matchup, like who's going against, what the cornerbacks are on that team, what the linebackers are on that team. But Ayuk's younger. He can handle a bigger workload because he doesn't have that injury history that Kittle has. You kind of feel like you have to give it to Kittle because he's Kittle and he's a captain, and he does match up well with Jimmy, but so does Aiyuk. I mean, Aiyuk on these slants is money. 3rd and 12 last week. He kept that first drive going. I would actually here. I got a stat. When targeted this year, Kittle's at Jimmy. When targeting Kittle, Jimmy's quarterback rating is 100. When targeting Aiyuk, it's 117. I'm just saying, Aiyuk, he might be worth about 8 targets a game. He's a hell of a player. I don't know what they were thinking the first half of the season, what lessons they were teaching him, but now that they've got him involved in the offense, they're so much better. So much better. Nothing against Trent Sherfield.
Thank goodness he learned his lesson when he did, I guess, right? I mean,
Yeah.
had they decided he needed to be in the doghouse for any longer, it could have been too late for this season.
I love
And,
how he
you know,
figured out his lesson right with the season on the brink. They're like 3-5. Oh, he got it. He got it. He got the picture. He learned it. Great
the
timing.
light came on.
Yeah, good.
I see Aiyuk as potentially of the two, the better at contested catches as well. And that seems to come into play. I would say I feel that he's the more sure-handed receiver of the two. I feel less inclined to say that he's going to rack up the yards after the catch in the way that Kittle does. I don't see him physically imposing himself on defenses in the way that Kittle does. But because you have other players that are doing that, you have a run game that is potentially snatching the soul of the defense if it's picking up big chunks and is consistent, and the 49ers stick with it. Brandon Aiyuk could be a very complementary style of receiver to Deebo Samuel, as opposed to Kittle, who seems to be in a similar vein, where you're looking to maximize yards after the catch. You're looking to allow Kittle to impose himself physically on smaller defenders.
You're right about yards after catch. I looked it up. Deebo's at 9.5. That's ridiculous. Kittle's at 6.3. Still good. And Aiyuk's at 4. Good. Aiyuk's at 4. I would expect more from Aiyuk.
Some of that could be as a result of the way in which he was used to start the season, or not used to start the season.
Good point. Yeah.
You would look to see that continue to trend up for the rest of the year, because it does seem as whether it is the use or whether it is Aiyuk really turning it on these last couple of weeks, he's back.
I got a bonus topic real quick. This is something I wanted to mention. I've been for years saying the Niners need to get the ball to use check more. This is the first season. I almost want to feel like they need to do it less. Nothing against him, although I do think he's starting to slow down a little bit. But I think the Mitchell and Sermon are more dangerous receivers than use check. Those guys need to get the ball more. I mean, it's screens. The Niners need to do more like screens to Deebo at running back, screens to their running backs, not screens to their wide receivers and tight ends and fullbacks. Just saying.
The more they can stress the defense, the better, from sideline to sideline, because the 49ers do have trends that they follow. And if you become predictable, it's more difficult to be dominant. And what I worry with Kyle Shanahan is his propensity to outcoach himself, to get a bit cute in his play calling, to zig before he needs to get away from the run when sticking with the run would be just fine, as evidenced by 2 weeks in a row where the average yards per carry you could label as atrocious, and yet the end result is the 49ers ran all over both teams.
Right. Okay, let's move on. We have some questions. We're going to get to them in a minute because the questions are about the game, and that's our last topic. So first, I want to do a topic that Niner fans love. They love talking about this. Jimmy Garoppolo versus Kirk Cousins. Who is better? Who would you rather have on your team Who would you rather have as your quarterback and why? Jimmy Garoppolo versus Kirk Cousins.
It is a really tough one for me.
Yeah.
I think that Kirk Cousins is absolutely the more talented thrower. He has a better arm. He has a more complete skill set. You could argue he's a better quarterback. If you put him through the drills, he is going to outperform Jimmy Garoppolo in most of them. Unfortunately, the NFL is not a series of drills. It is live action.
Thank you.
It culminates into very tense games that are high stress and nothing. I'm not, it's not a personal shot at Kirk Cousins.
Take it.
But everything I have seen is he folds under pressure. Everything I have seen is turn on the bright lights and Kirk Cousins' confidence fades. Yeah. Now, you could argue that same thing has happened to Jimmy, but on a more consistent basis, I have seen when Jimmy is in his state of mind that is exuding confidence. I think Jimmy is a confidence-based quarterback because I think he feeds off of those around him. He's not the type of leader that is going to be out front leading the charge as a quarterback. And that's honestly what you would hope for from a quarterback. He doesn't possess that. But when he has a complementary set of players around him, other leaders who are creating that sense of confidence, other players who are having success and therefore creating a scenario where he just needs to complement that and be a part of the solution. I think that Jimmy in big games has been more consistent than Kirk Cousins has. So regular season, I think you would get more wins with Kirk Cousins. Heading into clutch games, it becomes much closer to me.
Yeah. Although that even the thing
call.
about wins with Cousins, that hasn't proven that because he's a relentlessly 500 quarterback. Relentlessly 500 quarterback. Okay, you get a great answer. You pretty much weighed it out on both sides. Let me tell you how I think about it. Cousins has the better arm. My thing with Jimmy is he's got like PTSD from the Super Bowl. He won't cut it loose on the deep ball. He's done like 3 deep balls all season. And that to me is an issue. I don't like a quarterback like that. You gotta like Joe Montana would throw it deep. Didn't mean he had a huge arm, but he wouldn't be like, well, I might overthrow him and people might, make fun of me because I did that in the Super Bowl. That's an issue. Jimmy needs to start pulling the trigger on those deep balls again because Cousins all the time. And he's got this Justin Jefferson guy who's a big problem. And really, as good as Deebo Samuel is, they really haven't unlocked his full game yet because they don't get him the ball down the field, and he's really fast. He could be a big-time deep threat. So if he's catching the ball, say, 20 yards down the field, now it's a 50-yard touchdown as opposed to a 30-yard catch. So I like Cousins more for that. But then what I don't like about Cousins is there's something lead-footed about him. He can't avoid the sack. He's like he runs into the sack. And as soon as something breaks down, he makes the most unathletic plays. Like, what the hell was that, Kirk? Especially with the game on the line. And then what I really don't like about him, well, there's a couple of things. First of all, it doesn't seem like any of his teammates ever like him. He seems like this guy, like, well, he's good, so we play with him, but, like, I don't want to hang out with him. As opposed to Jimmy that everyone seems to like, and he's pretty much employed because the team insisted on it seems like. So there's that. And then, well, there's the quick release, too, for Jimmy. That really helps him avoid sacks. But no, the money. Kirk Cousins has negotiated this ridiculous contract with the Vikings where he gets a fully guaranteed deal. And right now he's making $31 million a year, fully guaranteed. Next year it's $45 million. Like, hell no. Give me Jimmy Garoppolo. Are you kidding? Hell no. I don't understand why anyone would go into business with a guy like that. $45 million for Kirk Cousins. Ugh.
You have to give real credit to Kirk and his agent. Get that money. It's wild that he was able to negotiate that. A contract that you would think would have been reserved for a Drew Brees or a Tom Brady or someone who had proven substantial greatness. But no, Minnesota thought they were that close to it, thought Kirk Cousins was the answer. I think it's proven that he's not. He's got a very talented receiving core over there, and that certainly complements his arm, his ability to get the ball out in space. So I think it's a good system for him. you wonder whether he would be more effective within the 49ers offense, because it would be different things would be asked of him. Now potentially Kyle would adjust, but we like to pretend as if Kirk Cousins had success underneath Kyle Shanahan in Washington. He did not. That was underneath Sean McVay after Shanahan was gone. And so it's imagination that's leading us to believe that there would be this perfect marriage between Kirk Cousins and Kyle Shanahan, that he would tailor an offense. I mean, it seems it's taken Kyle all these years to finally tailor an offense to Jimmy Garoppolo, where he's putting him in shotgun, allowing him to feel more comfortable instead of dropping back from under center, which for whatever reason, my suspicions are that Jimmy's footwork is so sloppy that in dropping back, it somehow throws him off, and he needs to keep his eyes downfield because he loses track of linebackers like nobody's business. Keeping him in shotgun at the percentages they have really seems to have impacted his game.
So I've got to say that Kirk Cousins is the better quarterback. I don't know if you've I've got to say, I mean, he's thrown for 4,000 yards, 5 times, and this will be the sixth time. He has thrown for 30 touchdowns twice. He currently has 21 touchdowns and 2 picks. He's a better quarterback than Jimmy Garoppolo, and he never misses a start, ever. That being said, you got to pay for that difference. You got to pay a whole lot for that marginal difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Kirk Cousins, and I wouldn't pay that. Give me Jimmy. I'll take Jimmy.
Yep.
I'll take Jimmy.
Yep. I'm shocked to hear you say that.
I'll take Jimmy. I'll take Jimmy.
I thought it would go the other way,
yeah.
But I agree. I put Kirk Cousins in the 10 to 15 range as far as top quarterbacks in the league, and I would put Jimmy in the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah. And I'm just not paying $31 million for freaking Kirk Cousins.
No.
Tell me when that works out for you, Minnesota. Let me know.
And let's be clear that if the 49ers had not made this monumental move to get off of Jimmy Garoppolo, and now we're hearing these hints at maybe Jimmy being back in 2022. If that's the case, it is atrocious that the 49ers did not renegotiate that contract. Coming off of 2020, you cannot convince me that they couldn't have leveraged Jimmy into a much more manageable cap number for this year and added some key free agents. I'm thinking of another cornerback that may have saved us when Verrett went down. So it's a front office issue as far as what we're paying Jimmy Garoppolo, because the leverage was there to force a lesser deal.
I love Trey Lance, and I like the idea of him being the quarterback of this team.
That's
but
right.
if they are going to play him for a few years, and it's this long-term project, what they could have done this year if they extended Jimmy Garoppolo, gave him a big extension, a signing bonus, made him really cheap in the short term. Like his cap number this year could have been $10 million or something ridiculously small because you gave him all that money in a signing bonus, and you draft a backup quarterback in round 2 or round 3. You could have really gone all in this year. You could have put together a much better team. You could have got really good cornerbacks in free agency, but you didn't. You didn't. So I'm just saying that this team could be way better than it is. Just with Jimmy Garoppolo. You like Jimmy. He's playing well. You could have extended him, committed to him, still giving yourself outs, but actually made a way better team this year. Anyway.
Yeah, they sacrificed that in moving to Lance, and that is fine as long as that works out long term. Yeah. As long as that works out long term, we will look back and say they were right. They were correct in there, going all in on the future, trying to ride 2021 to some extent, but not giving up assets that could be used in the future in investing in 2021. Because even with some additions, it's fair to wonder if this team with Jimmy at the helm is truly a Super Bowl favorite versus adding someone who has the elements that Lance does. Assuming that he works out in the way that the 49ers want him to, this could be a truly scary team in the future.
Only thing is, it seems like the whole sit a kid for 2, 3, 4 years and develop him is kind of a pre-rookie wage scale thing to do. Like now, the whole thing is to get the guy on the field while he's cheap. If you can get good play out of him while he's cheap, you're in business. He doesn't have to be great because you can put a good team around him. He doesn't have to.
That's right.
And so
by
if you're
taking
holding
him,
out for greatness, then okay, well that's what the Patriots did with Garoppolo. They kept him on the bench for 3 years. They were going to have to make a decision on him, pay him a lot of money based on nothing, or let him go. And they traded him. It was like, and now they got the same guy, way younger, for cheap for the next 4 years. That's what you want. Anyway, we do this every week. I'm just saying. I
yeah.
don't know how we got here.
And taking him at 3, you're now paying a backup quarterback salary
Too
to
much.
someone that you're really not getting. You're not maximizing at this point.
No. All right, let's go stick with Garoppolo. He has struggled against Minnesota in his 2 starts. He's played him twice. In 2018, it was week 1. They lost 16-24, 24-16. He was 15-33 for 261 yards, 1 touchdown, and 3 picks. Then in the playoffs, 2020, 11 of 19 for 131 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 pick. You don't remember it being that bad because they won 27-20. And at the time, like, who cares what his numbers were? But now it matters because they're playing them again. And in his 2 starts, his quarterback rating against them is 55.9. So it's a tough matchup. I asked him on Wednesday, what is it about Minnesota? And, Jimmy's really great this year. He's giving really good questions, good answers to every question. Smart, to the point. I said, you faced the Vikings a couple of times. What kind of challenges does their defense present? He says, well, they don't give you anything easy. That's where it starts. Their linebackers are really talented. Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr kind of play high to low on things. A challenge in the pass game with some of the too high stuff. Try to take away the play, action, pass, and things like that. And it makes it tough on us. So there's why Jimmy Garoppolo struggles against Minnesota. What they do is they play 2 deep safeties, take away the deep stuff. And then they play their linebackers back. So instead of playing them at 5 yards, they're more at 10 yards in the pass game. And what they're saying is, go ahead, check it down. You can check it down all day. But we're not going to let you throw that 10-yard pass over the middle to Deebo Samuel. And what Jimmy, if you take away that 10-yard pass over the middle to Jimmy, he'll force it. Because there's nothing really else. He's not going to throw outside the numbers. He's not going to throw deep. He won't. He thinks he has a better chance of threading the needle between the numbers than to power it out, because he doesn't have the arm strength for that. So he thinks with that quick release, he can kind of thread the needle, and he's gotten in trouble against really anytime he goes against good linebackers, he's in trouble. Not in trouble, but that's the bad matchup for him. That's every training camp against Fred Warner. That's this week against Eric Kendricks and Anthony Barr. He laid it out for us. What do you think?
Yeah, it seems to be his kryptonite. Not that I'm comparing Jimmy Garoppolo to Superman by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly the linebacker position is the role in the defense that is most responsible for the area of the field in which Jimmy Garoppolo tends to operate. And I had the unfortunate and fortunate fate of being at both of those games. I was there in 2018, traveled to Minnesota to see that beautiful stadium. Tip of the cap to them for putting up that beautiful, beautiful palace, but a very disappointing performance that day. I remember walking away dejected, going from thinking off of 2017 we were going to have a magical season, and that was just the beginning of a very painful 2018. And if you think back to the playoff matchup where he struggled again, it was that struggle that really led to the taking away the ball against Green Bay. And what I feel is damaging Jimmy's confidence. And then when you needed to turn back to him in the Super Bowl, I'm sorry, you had created a situation where he was less likely to be successful. Jimmy is a very confidence-based player. You can see it in his body language. He doesn't strike me as the type of individual that is always great at creating that confidence within himself. I think when you see natural born leaders, they're people who are able to bring that up within themselves. If you follow Deebo Samuel on Instagram and watch his inspirational quotes that he's posting every single day, you can tell he has driven himself to achieve what he has achieved this year. I don't see that in Jimmy. And so I think he needs others around him to play well. When coming up against this matchup with the linebackers, you have to hope that the 49ers are able to soften up Minnesota with an effective run game. Minnesota is, as I understand it, susceptible to the run this year. They may have very talented backers, but if they have a weakness, it is against the run. To me, you have to take some of the weight off of Jimmy Garoppolo so that he's not forcing those passes because he loses track of those linebackers like nobody's business and will throw that pick. It must be a very complimentary style of football. If we commit false start penalties, holding, anything that gets us behind in down and distance, I worry about Jimmy forcing it in and those linebackers taking advantage.
Yeah. It's no coincidence that when they lost, Jimmy threw 33 passes, and when they won, Jimmy threw 19. What he's saying is that the Vikings are giving you the run. They want you to run. They're saying they're not biting on play action. They're playing their linebackers deep. The whole thing what the Niners try to do is run the ball, do play action, get the linebackers sucked up, throw right behind them, right over them to Kittle or Deebo or Aiyuk. But they're not. It's not going to work. What he's saying is they're very disciplined. They're trying to take away the play action pass and conceding the running game, which is very 2021 to do on defense. You didn't used to do that. You used to have to stop the run first. So obviously, yeah, the Niners run the ball. If they can run the ball as well as they did in the playoffs against this team, they'll win. Problem is, what Minnesota thinks is, go ahead, run the ball. We're going to throw to Justin Jefferson. Go ahead. We're going to put up points fast because, say what you want about Kirk Cousins. He's pretty good. And they have two really good, one, maybe the best wide receiver in the league. That's what Kyle called him. And then Thielen's great too. And a running back, you can throw screens too. So go ahead, man. You play that ball control stuff. You better put touchdowns up though. You better not settle for field goals because Minnesota can score. They can score fast and they can score through the air. So I think that they're kind of cool with teams doing that. Although they're 5-5, so it's not like they have a winning formula right now.
Right. They're an inconsistent team, but it's fair to challenge another team, such as the 49ers, to go ahead, try for 16, 18 play drives. See if you can hold it together for that long. See if you don't have a holding penalty that gets you now 10 yards behind in down and distance.
And no long throw over the middle either. All runs and quick throws.
Or everything is going to be dink and dunk.
Yeah.
So it really is interesting in that Minnesota is challenging the 49ers to stick with their strength and saying, we think that you're not consistent enough in your strength to do it for 4 quarters. And we are capable, as you said, of putting up points very quickly. In a close game, this will feel very, very precarious for the 49ers because of the Minnesota Vikings' ability within the last few minutes of the game to simply hit some deep shots, get some defensive pass interference penalties against a suspect 49ers secondary, and climb right back into it, even if they're down.
Matthew Sanders asks, thinking Minnesota's a trap. If Kyle Shanahan gets stopped on the first 2 possessions and the Vikes take the lead, he will abandon the run. Jimmy Garoppolo's passing his lipstick on a pig. I don't think it's a trap. I mean, this is really going to be a very competitive game. I mean, it's not a trap. The Niners could win. They could lose, but I don't think they're looking at the Vikings like, oh, we got this. This is easy.
No, if they walk into this as a trap, they deserve to lose it. That's plain and simple.
Absolutely. So let's talk about our keys to the game. I mean, Matthew's keys are if Kyle Shanahan gets stopped on the first 2 possessions and the Vikes take the lead, he will abandon the run. See, I think one way to lead into this game is these are both kind of front-running teams in the sense that they're not built to come from behind. If the Vikings get a lead on you, if the Niners get a lead on you, they're tough. But if Kirk Cousins has to come from behind and he has to, avoid hits in the pocket, he's getting sacked. If Jimmy Garoppolo has to come from behind and throw a lot of passes, you're wondering, maybe not the interceptions, but just the Niners don't execute pass plays particularly well when they have to drop back. We've seen that against Arizona. It's not all him, but it's the offensive line, it's the receivers, it's fumbles, it's drops, it's interceptions, it's a lot of stuff. So whichever team getting a lead early would be a key. There's other keys, though. What do you think?
The key for the 49ers is consistency. They must maintain what we have seen the past couple of weeks. And there have been hints at issues. I mean, even against the Rams at home, they had an inordinate amount of false starts for a home game where you don't want to be racking up those false starts because, again, it is an offense that really isn't built for the big chunk. It isn't built to rely on the big chunk plays. They benefit from the big chunk plays, but to me, it must be a minimum of 25 to 30 carries for the running backs. The weight of this game must continue to be the identity of the 49ers. I've said it before and I say it again. If you have an identity, if you believe you are a run first team, then you enforce that identity on others. You do not allow defenses to dictate to you how you're going to attack them. If you have a strength, lean on that strength. Use that strength and force it down the throats of the defense.
Yeah, and the keys to the game is the faithful getting loud. Thank you, Eddie. You got to get loud.
Get loud.
Keys to the game. Well, if Jimmy's right about his scouting report of the Vikings defense, what they're going to do, how they're going to sort of hang back, too deep, deep linebackers. You're not throwing over the middle. We want you to run the ball. Well, then Deebo needs to play running back in this game a lot. If that's how they're going to play it, then you can't. You gotta give Deebo another 8 carries. You've got to give Deebo another 8 carries because it's going to be hard. Other than the quick slants and the quick screens, it's going to be hard to get that throw to him over the middle where he does his most damage in the pass game. So don't let Deebo get taken out of this game because you'll lose. If he gets 10 carries, 12 carries, I mean, the Vikings have no run defense. It's terrible. And he can exploit. He's averaging 7.2 yards per carry. That could be the winning edge right there.
I think that's a wise prediction in that, as we stated earlier, you have to manufacture the touches for Deebo Samuel. It does need to be somewhat matchup dependent on how you're going to get it to him, whether it's going to be trying to get him more passes in one game versus more carries in another. If Minnesota comes out and plays the way that it sounds Jimmy expects him to play, it sounds you expect him to play, it seems like a reasonable approach to me, although I would think the 2 deep safeties is unnecessary for them to play, because even if they didn't, I'm not so sure we would take the deep shots. But assuming that's how they play, then you're going to need to get the carries to Deebo, because if you're not getting Deebo enough touches, I'm just not seeing the consistency from other players. I worry Elijah Mitchell's usage coming back with the finger issue. And as I said earlier, Jeff Wilson Jr., as much as I love him and the dark energy that they talk about is something the 49ers were missing on offense. And I do think that he has had an impact on getting other players to play with a more physically dominant style where they are imposing themselves on the opposition. That is, to me, the key is the run game. It must include Deebo Samuel. You must stick with it, even if Jeff Wilson Jr. and Elijah Mitchell are averaging under 3.5 yards per carry, as they have the last 2 weeks. It doesn't matter if you continue to churn clock, play a clean game without penalties, and ask Jimmy to be a bit more conservative, where hopefully you don't have too many turnovers.
Dean says, what is this crazy talk that Jimmy G is better than anyone not named Tua? Are you serious, sir? I demand your football card right now. I have no idea what you're talking about, Dean. No idea. That was the most random comment ever. So I can't.
It sounds like he's saying he's the 31st worst quarterback in the league. That seems like a bit of hyperbole to me, but I get the frustration. I get how 49ers fans could get to that point.
The last time we thought the trenches were going to be an advantage was against Green Bay, and that didn't play out well. What wins this game? Well, here's the thing. I mean, the Vikings won't have Danielle Hunter. Are they going to have Tomlinson? I don't know. They're down on their D-line, and the Niners should feel confident that they can run the ball. It's just, can they defend the Vikings? That's the thing. The Vikings just could put up 30. The Vikings have a very potent offense.
And that's a good question, though. So what if the 49ers cannot run the ball? Do you see any other way in which they could attack this Vikings defense, or contain their offense? Do you see any other path to victory, or is it really one and done with the idea of being able to run it, or it's a troublesome game?
The Vikings don't have a great defense. They don't have pass rushers. I mean, they have some okay vet corners, kind of like the Niners. I mean, they have Patrick Peterson, who's like 47, and Brashad Breeland, who's okay. So the problem is the Niners beat themselves when they have to play like that. They fumble. They drop the ball. Their offensive line all of a sudden can't protect. Yeah, I don't know if they can win that way. Usually that's how they beat themselves. I don't know.
Yeah. As I heard, though, coming out of last week, I think Minnesota actually leads the league in sacks. I believe at 29
Hmm.
sacks that their defense may lead the league there. So that would be concerning. If the 49ers are forced to throw the ball considerably, you would have to hope for, my opinion there would be, now you're hoping for the 1 in 10 chance that Jimmy has a game like he did against the New Orleans
New
Saints.
Orleans
And I
Saints.
think he
Yeah.
really is only capable of that on rare occasions.
I think what we've seen the last, at least this season, is the Niners win when he throws less than 25 passes. That's
Agreed.
their formula. Less than 25. And once you get over that, even in the 30 range, it's not going to be his fault, but it's just not how their offense executes well. So if they can do that in this game, great. But I'm not sure that they're going to be in that. It might be a shootout. What if the Vikings are just going up and down the field and the Niners just don't have a corner who can cover Justin Jefferson because most teams don't?
Right.
So what happens if you have to play a different way? They've won that way in the past. Can they do it this year? We'll see. I mean, it's just Minnesota. It's not like they have a good defense.
Right.
Zimmer will make Jimmy win the game, unlike 2019. They have a terrible run defense. Let's see. I mean, I would imagine we're not going to see two deep safeties. It'll be 8 in the box with a lot of people over the middle. Daring Jimmy to Garoppolo to throw the ball outside the numbers, which he won't do. He won't. He
Right.
knows that's where pick six city is.
That's always an interesting dynamic when you have a strength of a team going up against a weakness of a team, but the team with the weakness is determined to force that issue,
Yeah.
to try and minimize the run, even though they don't have the personnel to really accomplish that end goal, because they know it's the key to beating the 49ers is stop the run.
That's the other thing about this matchup. Mike Zimmer is really a good defensive coordinator with a ton of experience. And
Yes.
he's faced Jimmy Garoppolo before. He knows how to build a game plan to attack his weaknesses. He's done it before. And I think we've seen that certain coaches are good at that. Pete Carroll's one. Jimmy's really struggled against Pete Carroll the last couple of times, gotten hurt the last 2 times. Uh, Zimmer's another one. So this is going to be a game where he's not necessarily going to have the schematic advantage like he normally does with Kyle Shanahan.
How would you grade out D'Amico Ryan's more recently schematically? Do you feel that he has grown considerably in this season so far? Because I would say early in the season, I was very skeptical of the in game adjustments and of some of the schemes going into games. But recently, I've begun to feel differently.
Well, yeah, they've won 2 games in a row. I think,
Right.
what he did against Colt McCoy, a team with no Kyler Murray or DeAndre Hopkins was really troubling. But that was like the whole team wasn't really prepared for that game. Since then, I mean, Jimmy Ward had more to do with the win over the. I mean, it just seemed like they've kind of gotten some lucky breaks. Matthew Stafford had a terrible game, and Robert Woods wasn't there. There were some turnovers, and then the Jaguars legitimately have an atrocious offense, one of the worst in the league, if not the worst. So let's see this week. Let's see what he does against good offense. This is a big test. It's not
This
their
is
division. Let's see what they do.
this is a season defining game.
Yes, no question. T Dot says we have to make the Vikes one dimensional. That's what they did last time. They did a great job against Dalvin Cook last time. T Dot. T
That's
Dot.
a great path to victory.
Yes. A couple more. Eddie says the Niners have a talented team. They just needed to find their identity, which they have. Now they got the momentum to win out. To win out. The moment. Oh, hey. I love Niner fans, man. That's great.
Hey
2 in.
yo.
Okay. All right. There you go. Let's see.
I think it's possible, maybe not likely, but
It's
the
definitely
49ers are
possible.
good enough to win every game that's on the schedule remaining.
Yeah. Right. Angelic Ambition says, what's the difference between 2021 Vikes and 2019 Vikes? Diggs was just as good, if not better. Same game plan, run the ball down their throats. Here's the difference. In that game, the Vikings were coming off an overtime playoff game on the road, and the Niners were coming off a bye week. That was a scheduled victory for the 49ers. The Vikings had nothing left in the tank. It was at the end of the season. They were toast. They couldn't stop the run. The Niners just leaned on them, and they were like, yeah, we're gassed. You got it. You're right. That's the playoffs for you, though. That's rough. Anyway, that's what happened.
It definitely felt like a letdown game by the
Yeah.
Vikings, but credit to the 49ers that they came in, put their foot on the
Oh,
Vikings'
yeah.
throat, and were able to get after Kirk Cousins. Much like Jimmy Garoppolo, if you are able to hit Cousins, knock him around,
Right.
get those quarterback hits,
Early.
it changes his game.
I thought that's why Jimmy Garoppolo missed Jeff Wilson Jr. on that first drive. He got sacked twice on that drive. People forget that, but neither one counted. He got hit a little bit in that drive, and all of a sudden he missed a wide open throw. Kirk Cousins is like that too. If they get into a rhythm early in the game and they're like, oh, I'm not getting hit today, they're good. They're good. Yeah. Otherwise, yeah.
Can't afford a slow start.
Is Greenlaw playing on Sunday? How much will the defense benefit from his presence? Also keep 29 on the field. I don't know. Is he playing?
I expected him to be ready to go last week. So I actually have to admit that with Thanksgiving yesterday, spending the time with the folks, that I haven't seen the update on who's in, who's out. But my hope would be that he would get in. I think Al-Shaair would probably still start given the physicality he's bringing to the position right now. But you could see Greenlaw getting worked in, certainly being on the field for 35% of the defensive snaps.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to hear what Kyle Shanahan says today at his press conference, which is pretty soon. That's our show. That was a good one. Thanks for making time on the day after Thanksgiving, which is always a sluggish day.
Yeah, still a little tryptophan running through the system, a little sluggish. But people need their entertainment, Grant, and we bring it.
We do bring it. Absolutely. It would be nice if the Niners brought it this Sunday, though.
Yes.
It would be nice. It would be nice. Big game. Kind of need to beat the Vikings because the Eagles are coming. Just throwing that out there. So, a lot at stake.
Yes.
No pressure.
A lot at stake. Yep. Hey, just a reminder to my viewers: no show on my channel today. Usually, I'd be going live immediately following this, but I'm with the folks. Got to spend that family time. Got to have that quality time, Grant. So I'll be live on Sunday, pre-game, post-game.
Sounds like a deal. Looking forward to it. Thank you, everyone. Take care.